Awesome, perfect, thanks. In it for the long haul. What does that mean? Inclusion, diversity, and equity are not just, buzzwords. It's not something that we just put on our website or walls. It's not something we use to attract talent or lure customers. It's not something that we just talk about. ID&E is a long-term game, something we live and breathe every day. And if we do it right, there will be a day where there is no longer a need for us to talk about it. Because it becomes second nature, something that is completely normal. Wow, hi everyone. My name is Marion. I'm super happy to be here talking about looking after your workforce. A little bit about me. I'm a business person at AWS Game Tech. I joined Amazon Web Services nearly a year ago and have spent a few years in the games industry before that. But more importantly, though, my all-time favorite games are Super Mario Bros. 3 and Zelda Breath of the Wild. And there was a time during this pandemic where sleep, work, game, repeat was my day-to-day. I consider myself a global citizen. I'm an Austrian living in the UK, and I have also lived in other places. In 2008, I traveled around the world and had the opportunity to live in Taiwan and also in Canada. And it is a time that I will always cherish. So most importantly, though, I am super passionate about ID&E. With more than 15 years in tech, I saw my fair share of how it should not be done. And once I stepped out of the whole kind of, this is so unfair, I started thinking about what can I do to change it, which also led me to write an article about how we can achieve sustainable diversity. Back to AWS now. At Amazon, we believe that inclusion, diversity, and equity are good for business. Amazon has always been and always will be committed to equal rights, tolerance, and diversity. And as Jeff says, it's not only that diversity and inclusion are good for business. It is way more fundamental than that. It is simply right. And I'm not saying that we're doing everything right, but I believe our intentions are good, and there are quite a few things that we as a company can do to make it right. And we will go into this a little bit later. But first of all, I'd like to go and have a look at the definitions of inclusion, diversity, and equity. And these might not be new to you, but I think it's always good to remind ourselves on what it is that we would like to achieve. So inclusion is about belonging. It's about individuals being able to be themselves, bring their authentic self to work, and feel confident, safe, and valued. Inclusion is about acknowledging lived experience and leveraging each other's unique skills and perspectives. That creates an environment for everyone to experience ownership and to feel empowered and confident in their abilities. It is also about providing that psychological safety to represent themselves without the fear of a negative consequence. Diversity is about being represented. It's about the full range of identities, including race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability, religion, language, you name it. It is about acknowledging that individuals and groups are not one-dimensional, that we are all shaped by multiple and intersecting identities, and even, celebrating the beauty of all of this. And equity is about fairness. It's not the same as equality, which means everybody's getting their fair share. Equity means recognizing and accommodating for different needs. It's about moving barriers to success and interrupting bias. It's about ensuring that policies, practices, and systems provide all individuals access to the opportunities, resources, and recognition they need to be successful. So at Amazon, we work with flywheels. The best way to describe a flywheel is just imagine an incredibly heavy wheel that takes huge effort to push. But if you keep pushing, it will build momentum, and eventually it starts to help turn itself and generate its own momentum. And we use this for all of our innovations, whether it's for products, services, processes, or things like ID&E. The basis for the ID&E flywheel to start pushing is a diverse and inclusive company culture. It means bringing varying backgrounds, ideas, and points of views together. And that attitude gives our customers access to the best innovation, and it leads to a great customer experience. This then creates the demand for new products and services, which allows us to be the company that just gets it, meeting demands, reaching new markets, and better engaging with the communities where we do business in. And this makes us a more attractive employer and enables us to attract and retain the best and most diverse talent, feeding back into the top of our innovation flywheel. So I suppose you get the gist of this. Looking at this from a business perspective, ID&E is important because diverse companies outperform. There is so much evidence that diversity makes companies more innovative and successful. Stats like inclusive teams improve team performance by up to 30%. Companies with diverse management have 19% increase in revenue. But we probably all know stats like these. So let's take a look at what this flywheel could look like for your company. And on a very simplified level, it starts again on the top with your employees and with your culture, and you pushing the diverse and inclusive company culture. Workforce diversity brings varying backgrounds together and encourages different points of view and ideas. It will lead to your team creating the right games for your audience, which leads to a great player experience. And this drives demands for creation and development of new games. So you will be the game developer that actually gets it and can attract more players, reach new markets, and better engage with your community. And this makes you a more attractive employer and enables you to attract and retain the best and most diverse talent, feeding into the top of your innovation flywheel. So if you've ever asked yourself why your company should be going after ID&E, or if you need arguments for having a conversation with your leadership about this, here are the stats, and this is the answer to why. So looking at this from every perspective, not only business, ID&E is important because diverse companies outperform. So you might now say, well, that is all easier said than done. And honestly, you're not wrong. It's not always as simple as that. So let me just give you a few examples of what we do to create and inspire inclusion, diversity, and equity. Building an inclusive culture is the absolute foundation for ID&E. It is on a very high level, and this is showing some example of this. Amazon has 13 different affinity groups, sometimes also known as employee resource groups. And these groups bring employees together across businesses and locations around the world. Each and every group comes with executive and company sponsorship. And with that, they play a very, very important role with us. They build internal networks for creating a community. They are advising Amazon business units in important decisions. They're leading in service projects, and they're reaching out to communities where Amazonians live and work. Some of these groups include the Black Employee Network, Glamazon, Women at Amazon, Families at Amazon, and Mental Health and Wellbeing. These groups also inspire our ID&E programs. So having spoken a lot about what we do as Amazon, this snippet here is just a tiny little overview of what AWS dedicated programs we have. We've got more than 35 different programs that support in this area. And the selection here only shows a fraction and does not include any of the internal recognition or education programs like Inclusion 101. And there, believe me, there are a lot of training courses available to employees on this topic. And I'd like to introduce you to just some of them. In learning and enablement, for example, AWS Educate provides content for students and educators to develop skills for cloud careers. So it also connects companies hiring for cloud skills to qualified student job seekers with the AWS Educate job board. In community services, we've got AWS in Communities, which is a team that focuses on community engagement and building and supporting global and local initiatives around science, technology, engineering, arts, and math education, in short, STEAM. Other areas they focus on are tech workforce development and environmental sustainability. And that includes empowering employees to take on courses that create positive change in meaningful and lasting ways. An example of that is the AWS Tech Week, which is designed to educate and empower school kids to pursue their interest in STEAM fields. And as an example of the pipeline programs, I'd like to mention AWS Get IT, which is a UK initiative to encourage girls to consider a career in technology through an inter-school app building competition. The girls are asked to solve a real issue faced by their school or their community, and the winning idea will be brought to life by AWS. It has so far been launched in the UK, Ireland, and Germany, and is planned to launch globally once the restriction of this pandemic ease up. Whoops, that was too fast. 1 second. So you may now think that is all good and well with a company like Amazon in the back, but we don't have time, we don't have the resource, we don't have the experience or expertise. And you know what? I understand. There are simple things that you can do. And please bear with me on this one, because it depends on where you are in your ID&E journey. So first of all, ID&E should come from the top. If it doesn't, it must be supported and endorsed and made a priority. That demonstrates the commitment and it provides model examples to the team. Secondly, unconscious bias. Whether we admit it or not, we all have it. Our brain makes shortcuts to what is known to us. And this is just how we're wired. But acknowledging bias, understanding it, and building awareness are the first steps to actually change this. Thirdly, start with acknowledging holidays of all cultures. It's really important that you acknowledge your employees' different backgrounds and needs. Holidays are one thing, be respectful of these days, but also make team socials inclusive to everyone with regards to the timing of it or the activity that you plan. Review how you screen and search for candidates is another thing, right? And one example is, according to PayScale, a whopping 80% of job openings aren't advertised. And as much as referrals are in general really a great thing, you do end up with the risk of finding like-minded people who join you. So that is one thing that you should bear in mind. Another simple way is to just remove names and photos or any other identifiable data of CVs when you create a shortlist for your peers to review. One other thing, one other thing is language. We often say things, and obviously without any bad intentions, that affect other people. And being mindful of the language is very important and is a great first step of this. And now let's talk about quota versus goal. Quota is not a goal. We want to focus on the goal of inclusion and diversity. A quota won't help you to achieve it. It's usually the result of well-implemented ID&E culture. So, well, there is obviously so much more that can be done, and please feel free to message me if you have any other tips or think that there is something really crucial missing on that kind of list on taking the first steps. My personal top tips for you are, number one, mean it. ID&E has to be the foundation of your culture. If you've ever heard of fake it till you make it, this is not the example to apply this to. It will bite you if you're not serious about it. So mean it and believe in everything you do. My second top tip is own it. Make it the most natural thing in the world. ID&E shouldn't come across as a chore or a burden. It requires effort, but if you own it, it will become second nature and part of your company culture. And the third part is ask for help. If you don't know where to start, just ask. There are so many great programs out there that can help, with Ukie being one of them that is right in front of you. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone to not only listening to this, but also having us at the Ukie Hub Crawl.